Hello, welcome to episode whatever this is of the Mindset Breakthrough podcast. My guest today is Abbey Woodcock. Abbey is one of my favorite humans. We worked together at writing copy at I Will Teach You to Be Rich about 1,000 years ago, and we still hang out and do things now and then. She's just a wonderful person. She was like an amazing, super badass copywriter, and then was like, yeah, fuck this. I don't give a shit about internet marketing or copy anymore. I'm going to go open a cheese shop. And now she has a cheese shop in Oneida, New York, Cali, 1945. And also every year she does this like 12 days of Cheesemas thing where she gives you 12 different types of cheeses, and you get a lot of it and then you eat them all. And then I do that every year. And it's wonderful. So that's Abbey.
That's me.
Yeah. Anything else do you want to introduce yourself in any other way?
No, that was pretty
cool.
Pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. So Abbey had her own breakthrough through therapy. That just want to just tell us a story. What happened?
Yeah, definitely. So basically my whole life, I'm insanely independent, like in a way that's like detrimental to me. And I think like every personality trait, like there's some things about it that it helped me become successful because I just like do the thing. Like I don't wait. Like I opened the cheese shop and was just like, I can do it. Like, why wouldn't I be able to do it? So that's been like the good side of it. But like the bad side of it is like the two things that happen at the same time is I don't want anybody to help me. I don't want anybody to talk to me, but then I also get mad that nobody's helping me and I have to do everything by myself all the time. And I'm always like, just sure that I'm the most competent person in every room. And that has been like terrible for me because I have trouble like listening. I have trouble like getting information from people that are smarter than me because I don't know, a whole bunch of things. But this was something I recognized, I don't know how long ago it was now, 3-4 years ago, probably. I was like, this is becoming a real problem when I'm like running a business and like I was hiring people and having people work for me. And it just wasn't a great leader. And I was like, it's because I want to do everything. I can't delegate. So let's figure this out and figure out like where this is coming from. So I worked with a coach that was specialized in basically childhood trauma and like trauma informed like business and how the stuff that happened when you were a kid influences your business. And she did this exercise with me, which is like a trauma regression, basically, where she was like, okay, what's the trait that you are like, what's the feeling that is causing issues for you? And like, when was the first time that this ever happened? And this was like a process over, probably about an hour it took. But so I was thinking about like when I was a kid and like I was like, wow, I can't remember I feel like I've thought about this my whole life, is just feeling like I'm the only one that can do anything. Nobody's ever going to take care of me. I'm the only one that can do everything. And doing this exercise, it went back to this moment when I was like 5 years old. It must have been around, because my brother's about 5 years younger than me. So I have 4 siblings, or 3 siblings, 3 younger siblings, and my brother's 5 years younger than me, and my one sister is like 2 years younger than me. My sister was like very, say, energetic child. she was a lot of work for my parents, and I was always like a little bit quieter and a little bit more independent even before this. So when my brother was born, he was an infant. He was born in the fall, and it was the winter. And my dad was trying to get my sister, who would have been like 3 or 4 at the time, get her buckled into the car. So I got myself into the car, I buckled, and I just like sat there thinking like, why are my siblings so crazy? My dad set my brother's car seat on the hood of the car, and it was like middle winter in New York, and was like buckling her in, and my brother slid off the hood of the car and his car seat flipped over. He was totally fine. But of course my dad like freaked out, like ran around, picked him up. The funny part from my brother's side is that he picked him up, my brother was laughing. And so this is like, my brother's a hockey goalie. So it was like, oh, like his personality started from infancy too, of like, he fell off of a car and thought it was hilarious. So, but my reaction to that, and my mom will still talk about how for months afterwards, we'd get in the car and I would sit in the car and I would be like, I can't believe you put the baby on the hood of the car. Like I was so mad that my dad made this mistake, and had convinced myself in that moment that like kind of two things, that like nobody was going to take care of me. My parents were completely incompetent, couldn't take care of anything, which is not true. My parents are great. And so that, yeah, so everybody around me is incompetent. I'm the only one that's going to take care of myself. And I was the only one that could take care of my brother. Like I was, from that moment on, like sure that my brother was not going to survive unless I took care of him. And I was like 5 when I made this decision. And it's funny because so many things with my brother throughout the years, like I don't cry very much. I'm just like not a super emotional person. And I sobbed at my brother's wedding, and my whole family like was taking pictures and like laughing about it. My dad mentioned it in like the speech at the wedding because I was like sobbing and I didn't know why. And it was because like I had this thing since I was little of like that my brother was like my child that I had to take care of. And so that was like a huge breakthrough for me, because it like was, I think, where it started, this idea that people around me that are actually very competent and very, very good at what they're doing, I just don't trust them. And so that was like such a huge like realization of just both my relationship with my brother and my parents, and like how I just see people in general, you know.
Awesome. Yeah, that's why I love this shit, because it's like you can read, you know, you said it was like kind of like a leadership problem of like delegating. It's like you can read all the books and you know what you got to do. It's like, I know I need to be delegating, but like it's just not working. And it's because you got this friggin' like thing you've just been carrying around that's just been with you fucking forever, just being like, oh no, we're not, like, this is a very kind of core belief that's just like not gonna let any of that stuff happen. So it's so cool to be able to realize like, oh, this leadership thing actually has to do with something that seems seemingly unrelated from when you were 5. Like, I just love
and it
that.
seems like such a like stupid little moment, but like I realized like it's seared in my brain at that moment of like, nobody's gonna take care of you, and nobody can nobody can do the basics. Like, and so it just it helps now when because I kind of think about it where I'm like, I haven't figured out how to fix it yet. I'll say that, but just being able to say like, oh, you're doing that thing again. Like, this is about your brother, not about the person like sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
And like, just to realize that, I think the bigger thing is like to realize like your first thought or your first like impression of a situation isn't necessarily like objectively true. Like just because your brain like presents this. And that's what I've been like really working on, is like when I come into the room and I'm like, nobody can do this better than me. So like, I'm just going to set that expectation. And then now, at least when I have that thought, I can be like, is that actually?
Yeah. What's the evidence here?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are the chances I'm walking into this room with, for example, in cheese, I'm like new to this industry. I'm like, what is the chances I'm walking to this room with these people that have been doing this for 20, 30 years and I'm the smartest one in the room? Like, it's pretty low that like I'm the only competent one here. Like, I'm probably the least competent one here, but to be able to at least just recognize that like you don't have to take care of everything. Like, people can do things. Like, people can be trusted. And so
what was kind of, and it's also cool because like that was very much when I did my work with the Brent like many years ago. Like his was the same thing of like, we've got this like attitude of like, oh, like, you know, for me it's like, oh, like my client's gonna hate this thing that I do. And it was like, okay, what's the first memory you have of like this person's gonna hate this thing? And usually like, ideally, and it's probably going to be around one of your parents. And like, and that became like how to work through it. So like, was once you kind of realized like the core memory, like was that kind of like a traumatic thing to relive, or like, and once you had that, like what did you then do with it, like within the session?
So the session, so I wish I'd worked with this coach for longer, I'll say that, because I feel like I didn't get the resolution. I just got the answer. I didn't get the like, okay, here's what you do with that information. And but for me, it felt like such a huge, like, I had a similar physical thing. Like, I have a knee issue that's like a genetic thing with my knee. And once I realized this like a year ago, I had an MRI and they were like, oh yeah, this has been a problem your whole life probably. And I'm like, it has been a problem my whole life. Like, this is great. Like, and it was just like, it explained all these things. And when for my knee, it was like I had certain trouble with when I was playing volleyball and like different things that were like weird knee issues that I had that I didn't understand. I felt the same way with this of like, oh my God, it was like it wasn't traumatic to relive it. I just like was able to kind of, I guess it like, it just opened up the like, oh, this is where this comes from. It doesn't come from the fact that you're surrounded by idiots all day long every day. It comes from the fact that like your brain says you're the only one. And that was just like, once I was so excited. I mean, I told everybody like,
nice.
Like the next day, like I was like, listen to this shit. When I was 5, I fucked my whole life up. And the mistake I made is I like one of the first people I told was like my mother and my brother.
Oh, yep.
Like, and my mom was like, so you're saying you think I'm incompetent? I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't your fault. This like whole incident, it wasn't my dad's fault. It was like, he made a mistake. Like, this is not, it wasn't like a big deal. But like my little 5-year-old brain was like, okay, this is like how the family works. Which, like I said, is not like, my parents are awesome parents. And so when I told them, my mom like took it very as you would when you like your child comes to you and says, hey, you know why I'm screwed up? It's because of you. Like,
and like this stuff can also happen for like things that just seem so like nothing. Like, you know, it's just your parents doing their best and everything. And like, you know, you've got kids. If I have kids one day, we're going to do the same thing. And like the best you can kind of hope for is just like being able to have those conversations with the kids during the time or not too long after so that you can work through it. But yeah, like it's just going to happen, like, because 4-year-olds don't know how to interpret things. Well, and neither do adults really. But
that was like the question I asked, like when I started working with this coach, like before this, she was like, okay, we're going to like figure out your childhood trauma. And like, and I'm like, I don't really have childhood trauma. Like I had a pretty good childhood.
I had the same. That was my reaction.
And I was like, I was like, my parents are awesome. And which they are, but that doesn't mean that like your brain didn't, like you said, like 4 or 5-year-olds, like, you know, kids of any age, teenagers.
Gonna misinterpret shit.
A situation happens and then your brain is like, oh, what does this mean about the world? And it like doesn't mean anything about the world. It means my dad made a mistake. Like, okay, like a minor mistake that nobody was hurt and nothing bad happened. And like that doesn't mean anything about my dad or my family relationship or their parenting, but my 5-year-old brain was like, oh, everything that's happening like is teaching you about the world. And then your brain is like, okay, how can we take this information and then like live through the world with it? And it's like, I don't like my son, he's 14 now, and he was like, what do you think you're screwing up as a parent? I'm like, you're going to figure that out in therapy. I was like, because I'm sure there's some like weird situation. Like, I like to pretend I'm the perfect parent, but like, even if I did everything right, like that in itself, I think is traumatic to be like, my mom was absolutely perfect at everything. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah, that itself is probably a massive red flag. And so you talk about, so like, you have this discovery, and then it sounds like there was a little bit of like, well, what do you do with it? And it's like, okay, now you have the awareness of it. You can see it coming. You can ask yourself, like, is this true? That's a question that I learned from Rhonda Bitton that I share with a lot of my clients, of just like, asking yourself, is this true or are you making it up? Because a lot of times, like you said, we have these ideas and it's not actually based on any reality, but we're very used to having them. And then once you actually look for facts, you realize like, okay, maybe there's some not some truth to it. But like, was there like anything you got to like help you with like now how to apply this, or is that kind of it, just your own awareness and kind of asking yourself that question?
I think that, and then like my partner being aware of it. So like, nice, I mean, Casey knew this about me, obviously, because like it's not hard to tell like with me that like, oh, she's a very independent person and never wants anybody to help her. But he was like always really good about just being like, hey, I know you're a strong, independent, very smart woman. I also can help you with this. Like, you can be independent and get help. And like, that doesn't make you less of a person. And he would say that like before all this happened. But then me like sharing this with him of like, hey, do you know what I do? And he's like, yeah, I know you do that. but now it's good because he can also recognize it even when I can't, because a lot of times when you're in the moment and like stressful things, like it's hard to recognize like those patterns. And so he's like, hey, just so you know, there's a bunch of people around that can help you and are very good at it. And I'm like, thank you for just pointing that out. Like,
cool. Yeah. So like, and like, has it led to you being able to like hire people or just offload work more or things like that?
it has. I think being okay with like not having my eyes on everything, especially in the cheese shop. Even like being in this office right now, so the cheese shop is like right up there up front, and I can hear what's going on. And I used to like sit out in the shop, and I realized that I'm like, then I just totally micromanage. Like, and so sitting here, I'm like, now it at least forces me to be like, no, they can handle it. Like, I do not need to be there every minute. Like, and what's the worst that's going to happen if they mess up? That's been a really big question for me too, is like, what's the worst case here? Is like, they tell somebody some wrong information about some cheese, like the wrong or something. Like, I think it's gonna be okay. Like, you know? And so
we thought this would have a buttery texture.
Yeah, exactly. So
Thanksgiving is ruined, yo.
So it has like, I'm just like really trying to, if I delegate, this is what I've kind of learned about myself. Like, if I delegate, I can't be like half part of the project. Like, I have to just be like, okay, this thing, you handle it, and like just don't show it to me, because I'm gonna get, it's really hard for me to resist like getting in there. And like it was like that with copy too.
Cool.
That was writing copy. That was that emotion. Like, get in there. But it was like that too, of like, okay, I gotta just let people do their thing, and then if I need to make edits, fine, but I don't need to like be part of every second of the process.
Yeah. And then like, what's the impact of that? Is it like freeing up time? Is it making like relationships with Casey/employees like go better and more smoothly? Like, what's
Definitely. And it's just like allowing me to like have the, like, yes, time freedom for sure, but also like, what is the stuff that I want to do and I want to work on, because I don't have to worry about every single little thing. And so that has been like kind of my new project in the last like self project in the last probably 6 months, is just like getting in touch with like, what is it that I want to do every day? And it's not take care of all this crap that I don't need to be taken care of. Like, I want the energy and the freedom to like have my own wants and needs. And that's like, I don't have to take care of everybody. Like, I don't have to, I can just focus on me. And so that's been like really hard as well, is just like, even simple stuff like, what do I want to watch on TV if nobody else is around? Like, I don't really know the answer to that question. So that's been like the next thing I'm working on is, and I think that couldn't have happened if I hadn't realized that like, oh, like you can let go of some stuff and like make room for you.
Yeah, it's amazing, this thing of like the micromanaging that you're telling yourself you have to do it, and then kind of being able to realize, no, you just don't have to do that. And then you've got all this freedom to be like, well, what would I want to be doing instead? Because that shit wasn't enjoyable. It was just like kind of obligation, I'm guessing, or like this kind of like need for control. And like
and that's something with my therapist, the question that they asked is like, what would happen if you didn't show up today? Like, what happened if you just didn't do anything today? And my like first reaction is like, the whole world is gonna fall apart. Like everything, like the internet will probably crash, like my business will be gone, like. And it was just like working through of like, oh, that's what my silly brain is like telling me subconsciously, like. And once you say it out loud, you're like, I'm ridiculous. You know, it's like, and so that's been like,
it's funny, those thoughts that can kind of control you, and like we kind of like notice them, but like don't pay too much. Once you really sit with them and look at them, and you're just like, well, that's stupid. Like, what?
It's like, if I decided not to go to work today, like, would be an effect, sure, but like, would tomorrow be fine? Like, it would be fine.
People would walk up, see cheese shop closed today, and then go, huh, and then move about their freaking day and come back next time they need some cheese.
No, they wouldn't, Brian. They would write a review. They would be picked up by the New York Times. I would be known worldwide as the cheese shop that's not open when they're supposed to be open.
The cheese that cannot be trusted. Everyone in Winona would be like, get this woman out of here. They take your awards away for fucking businesswoman of the year and all the shit you've won.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down.
Cool. Yeah, and then what's the type of therapy now that you're doing? Is it like talk therapy, or like I mean, it sounds like that's kind of like helping you with the implementation a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of basic talk therapy. Like I said, the first one was like a trauma regression thing, and then so now it's just kind of the talk therapy. And I don't go like super regularly, probably once every month or so, sometimes twice a month, but it's just nice to just have like, hey, this is some like weird shit that I just need to like, I don't even necessarily, again, my therapist is incompetent just like everyone else in my life now. Like,
you're not gonna be able to help me with this, but
if you
we
could
got
just
an
sit there
hour, so
and
whatever.
listen so I can figure it out on my own.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of validity in that.
Then that's basically like a lot of what it is. It's like me coming to the realization, but like having somebody that's really good at asking those questions is like, it's an incredible, like, oh, like it sounds so like cliche of like, well, how do you feel about that? Or like, what do you think about that? Or like, just like these basic like therapy questions, but it's just like, oh, how many times a day do you ask yourself like, how am I feeling about this situation? Like never. So to have like, oh, this is the problem and this is this crazy situation. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, well, what would you do differently? Or like, what about next time? And it's like, oh shit, like these are good questions.
Yeah, that's what I do in the coaching I do. It's very much like I've got tools and stuff available for people if they need them, but like the whole like idea is like you've already got the answers, like they're inside you. It's just a matter of getting the right questions and getting some clarity on it, and then figuring out like what to do with it. And that's really cool that you've got therapy to help you like apply this more. I've also and just like the people that I've talked to, I've heard a lot of like therapy can help you have these realizations, and then sometimes you just end up kind of circling them and not really getting anywhere. And I feel like that's where coaching is like a really good help. And it sounds like your therapist is actually kind of doing like coaching as well, where it's like coaching is more of like the moving forward, what do we do with it now, or maybe that is also just like a part of certain types of therapy or therapists that do that.
And I love like I've had like different coaches for different reasons, and I think somebody that can understand like that mindset stuff and like whatever industry you're in and like how those two work together, because like I mean, we know like in copy, like all that stuff comes up like in lots of different ways, and probably every business or job that you're in, like you said, you can read all the books about how to be the best copywriter ever and how to get clients and how to whatever. But like, if you got this crazy shit running around in your brain, like it makes it difficult to.
It makes you stressed out, gets the self-sabotage going. There's a lot of ways it can make you not happy despite how smart you might be or how good you might be and all that other stuff. And you just kind of like a lot of times, I think a great way to notice if you've got like those kind of deep issues is if you're just hitting the same kind of walls over and over again. Like you were saying, like this was very much a theme of you've got to do everything yourself. Other people are incompetent, and like that's been going on for years. And that's like, that's a sign of there's some shit that happened when you were 5 that's causing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet. Cool. Well, is there anything else that you want to share?
No, I think that's the big thing. I mean, there's like 1,000 rabbit holes we could go down. My messed up brain, but
I'm trying to keep the podcast just focused, or the show just focused on one rabbit hole per episode.
Exactly.
Because it can go. But we can always do repeat shows, so that's an option. Sweet. So if people love Abbey, as I'm sure they will, where do they find you? Where do they get more into Abbey's world?
So I have 2 kind of businesses right now. So one is Freelance Co-op, freelancecoop.org, the business side of creative freelancing. So there's contract templates and all that fun stuff there. And if you love cheese, we ship all over the United States. And so we're at Callie1945.com. So cheese and business, and that's me.
So Abbey's cheese shop's fantastic. The I keep forgetting the name because it used to be one thing and now it's different. The business co-op, right? That's what it is now.
Freelance co-op. It used
Freelance
to be
co-op,
business
yeah.
to copy.
Freelance
Yeah.
co-op is awesome. I was in it for like a couple of years. Very helpful and like just like ready to use templates and systemizing your business. So all the like BS work that you can not have to deal with frees up your time a lot and helps you look more, come across as much more professional to your clients. You know, trick them into letting them think you got your shit together. Kind of like that tagline. Yeah, so I can't recommend anything Abby does. Can't recommend it enough. And if you found this helpful and you want to get more future shows, head over to mccarthymindsetcoaching.com/join. Hop on my email list. You'll get more episodes. I also share a lot of like client breakthroughs and emails, so you'll learn more than even just on the episodes. Okay, thank you very much, and bye everyone.